Hey everybody, it's Chris from Guilty Words, where we unravel crime one word at a time. Donna Adelson's trial is finally underway, and it started off with all kinds of sparks. No surprise there. What I want to look at tonight is the opening arguments for both sides and the language that each side used. So I'm going to go through the main points they made, but I mostly want to focus on how they made them and the two different styles of presentation they had. The flaming arrows of the prosecution and the smoke and mirrors of the defense. Let's take a look at it together. With a well-written oral argument, it should be possible to go back and reconstruct the person's outline from what they said. And that was easy enough to do with the prosecution because they aimed each of their points straight at the target. They went through the motive and custody battle, Donna's role as a conspirator, the evidence, refuting defense claims, and the jury tampering attempt. The prosecution alleges that Donna was the driving force behind the entire scheme. They characterized her as a calculated and controlling matriarch. The relocation battle was a major motive. She was desperate to relocate the children to South Florida, and Dan Markel was in the way. And she tried bribes and incentives, even considering the famous $1 million bribe, but then moved towards violent measures instead. The focus was on Donna's role as a conspirator. She was the details person, the matriarch. She ran the office, the home, and the lives of the Adelson family members. The payment scheme. Charlie leveraged Catherine McBanois as the intermediary to reach Sigfredo Garcia and Luis Rivera, and they were paid about $100,000 to carry out the killing. And not only that, but McBanois started getting these payments, signed by Donna, for doing no work. In addition, they referenced the emails between Donna and Charlie, and also the bump, the undercover wiretap, in which Donna was approached by an FBI agent to try and stir the pot. Now, the prosecution knew that the defense was going to try and point fingers everywhere but at Donna, the smoke and mirror defense. Look here, look here, look here, look at this person, not at Donna. And so they refuted this independent actor claim that the hitmen were independent and later extorted the family, Charlie's whole defense. And they reaffirmed that Donna's actions went beyond plotting, that legally she was as guilty as the person who pulled the trigger. And no opening statement could be complete without talking about the much fought over attempted jury tampering from jail, the bribery of the inmate witness, Donna's jail daughter, and even providing a script for perjury. And then it was the defense's turn. And if you go back and carefully listen to it, there was an outline here as well. It just was presented differently. After the prosecution's very point by point presentation, this softer, more nebulous presentation felt disorganized, but actually it wasn't. There were a few surprising pieces in it, though. Jackie Fulford wanted to emphasize the supposed lack of evidence that the state had. She wanted to humanize Donna. She wanted to talk about Dan, and I want to spend a little time on that one. She argued the custody battle was settled. She wanted to reject the state's supposed sensationalism and beg the jury to look for evidence-based reasoning. Now, as judges are fond of reminding juries, what's stated in opening and closing arguments is not proof. So in this case, Jackie Fulford started by emphasizing that the prosecution presented a motive and a very dramatic story, but not a single piece of evidence was discussed that shows Donna Adelson planned this, hired anybody to do this, or intended that this should happen. Well, we'll see. There's a long trial ahead. And she was careful to underscore the difference between motive or theory and actual proof, pointing out that this particular murder was outrageous in its cruelty, but motive alone doesn't equal guilt. Okay, maybe we might admit that Donna was angry over things to do with the divorce, but that doesn't mean she killed him. A lot of people have motives to do things, but it doesn't mean they act on those motives. Next, the defense tried to humanize Donna. And we already expected this, and we'd already seen it when they dressed her in the nice little granny sweater and striped shirt. They went a step further here, and they characterized her as a normal person just like all of us. I don't know exactly what their definition of normal was. She didn't go that far, and I'm not sure I really want to know, but I'm not sure she's just like all of us. But she was a grandmother who cared deeply about her family. I've seen this done before, where people use the term grandmother and it conjures up these pictures of a nice little old lady baking cookies. When really, if you look at true crime, there are an awful lot of ghastly grandmas. So being a grandmother doesn't preclude being a murderess. The other thing that the defense implied was that at the time of the crime she was 64, not a criminal mastermind. I don't understand the juxtaposition. Being a criminal mastermind is not age dependent. As a matter of fact, you could argue at 64 you've had lots of practice in being a criminal mastermind. But still, the general feeling was there. Frail, lovely little old lady. And they said all that with a straight face. And then the defense turned to Dan Markel himself and painted a glowing tribute to him that was even better than anything the prosecution said. This seemed like a surprising move, but she asked the jurors to remember Dan Markel and called him Danny, describing him as very well respected by his peers, a very smart man. And something about her calling him Danny really, really bothered me. Let me know in the comments if you had the same reaction. I know that Wendy calls him Danny, but then she was his wife and maybe that's out of habit. But I don't think Donna ever would have called him Danny. And I felt like saying, don't you dare call him Danny. Don't you dare be that familiar. Why don't you say Jibbers? Because that's really what Donna called him. But she went on to describe the murder as a tragedy, despicable, inexplicable evil, emphasizing the gravity of the loss, especially for Markel's family. And since I believe Donna was part of this just really bothers me because, Donna, you caused this. The world lost a brilliant legal mind. His family lost a son and a brother. His community lost its sense of security and lost a good citizen. This effusive praise of Dan and how well respected he was. And I thought, what's the point of this? And it's more of that smoke and mirrors. It's more of this is how Donna felt about him. We acknowledge all this is true. And if we felt this way, and if she felt this way, why would she ever want to kill him? She knows it's a tragedy. And certainly she put on some nice alligator tears when the autopsy photos appeared. She didn't cry when she was notified of his death from her daughter. But so it's part of the smoke and mirrors. Look, Donna's on the side of people who love Dan and were horrified about this. She's not on the other side of people who wanted him dead. Interesting, though, that she does seem to imply her son was on the side of the ones who wanted him dead. They also tried to argue that the relocation issue was closed. It was no longer even on Donna's mind, it seemed like. Once the relocation battle was legally resolved, there was no lingering motive to resort to violence. And that's a slippery slope, because you can argue it equally well the other way. Because legally there was no more recourse, they had to take more drastic measures. She attacked the prosecution's what she called sensational matriarch mastermind framing, saying it was just speculation, no hard evidence. And without evidence, only motive and theory, They put her at the top of this pyramid. Poor Donna. Let's take a look at some of the actual language that each side used to present its argument. For the prosecution, they used things like driving force. And this portrayed Donna not only as just involved, but an active engine behind the murder plot. They called her a calculated and controlling matriarch. And these adjectives describe someone who's strategic, who's deliberate, who's domineering. They were casting her as a mastermind, not a passive participant. And a matriarch implies the leader of a family, not someone off on the sidelines. They said that she hated Dan Markel, not that she was a little angry with him or anything, she hated him. And that's a very visceral, emotional descriptor. And it underscores Donna's deep animus towards him. Never, never, never give up and never stop fighting. The repetition amplifies Donna's determination and persistence. It frames her as absolutely relentless in her efforts to get the kids to southern Florida. She acted in furtherance of this murder plot. And this phrase is legally charged language. It implies direct and purposeful action. And it's used to establish complicity rather than omission. She was taking part in this. She wasn't ignorant of it. This makes her guilty as a principal, just as if she was the one pulling the trigger. Now, the one verb indicates causation in the legal assignment of guilt that's needed as part of the conspiracy theory. But pulling the trigger vividly evokes this personal involvement in the violence. So I've summarized some of the language here, and I'm not going to read this chart to you, but look at the overall effect. The words imply the determined orchestration, deliberate strategic wrongdoing, dominance, manipulation, authority, hatred, relentless pursuit of her purpose, legally significant conduct, legal responsibility, and direct involvement in a violent act. The whole picture painted is of a dangerous woman who wanted a man dead and didn't stop until he was. Now, the defense's language tends to be softer and more vague. It is truly outrageous. This with the idea of the crime and the fact that Donna is charged with it, conveying an emotional and shocking nature to the entire situation. And not just outrageous, but truly outrageous. Without evidence, only motive and theory, they put her at the top of this pyramid. And this is a metaphor for unsubstantiated guilt, the idea that the prosecution has just put Donna here for no provable reason. Donna is just a grandmother, not a crime boss. And this is actually a powerful juxtaposition to cast Donna in a more sympathetic role. Grandma versus big tough crime boss. Of course, if you're American, you might be thinking a little bit about Ma Barker right about now. She's a kind, normal, 64-year-old woman. This is used to emphasize humility, warmth, and a non-threatening demeanor, supposedly. Why would this woman want to take away the father of her grandchildren? Talk about some distancing language here. This is plain-spoken, relatable, non-monstrous, if you will, framing. It's a rhetorical question that invites the jurors in. And this woman, this kind little grandmother, why would she want to take away the father of her grandchildren? Such a warm and empathetic presentation of the roles of the people involved, as opposed to, why would this woman want to remove the obstacle to what she wanted the most? And as we did with the prosecution, here it is in the full picture. The words and phrases that emphasize emotional shock, moral condemnation, emphasize insufficient proof, a lack of concrete substantiation, unjust elevation to guilt, highlighting Dan's positive character and implying that Donna felt that way as well, deflating the sinister framing that the prosecution put around Donna, emphasizing her vulnerability and trying to provoke doubt in the jury's mind. So key contrasts: the prosecution uses sharp declarative sentences and verbs like plotted, orchestrated, demanded. The defense uses a softer tone, a more conversational style, including rhetorical questions, with adjectives like kind, normal, outrageous. The effect: the prosecution presents Donna as powerful and dangerous. The defense insists that Donna is misunderstood. Thanks for joining me tonight. I really appreciate your time. Let me know in the comments what you think about what the defense said about Charlie, and also what you think of the sort of folksy, down-home, twangy attitude that they took to try and be relatable to the jury. Do you think it worked or not? I'm not sure it did, but let me know your thoughts. This promises to be a fascinating trial, and I'm going to watch as much of it live as I can and be with you as often as I can during it as well. So until I see you in the next video, please use your words wisely and well. Take care.